Dust rose from the dry ground as the sun began to sink behind the western hills of Silver Creek. The little town had seen too much sorrow that week. A gang of outlaws had ridden through, burning barns, robbing the bank, and leaving widows behind. Among the chaos stood one man the town still trusted, Sheriff Clayton Reed, a tall figure with a jaw set like stone and eyes that had seen too many winters. But today wasn't about law or justice. Today was about something deeper, something human. The church bell rang in the distance, slow and solemn, as a group of women stood outside the sheriff's office. Widows, all of them left alone after the raid. And in front of them stood the sheriff and a quiet man with two little girls. Holding his hands, Luke Carver, a rancher known for his silence and kindness. His hat was dusty, his coat worn, and his eyes, though tired, still carried a warmth that hadn't died, no matter how hard life had been. Sheriff Reed cleared his throat and said, "Luke, you've been alone long enough. These women need homes, protection, and you've got land and decency. Choose any woman you want." The words cut through the air like a blade. Everyone froze. It sounded harsh, but in the West, life wasn't about romance. It was about survival. Luke looked down at his twin daughters, Annie and Rose, both barely 6, their little faces smeared with dirt and tears. Their mother had died 3 winters ago in childbirth, and since then, Luke had lived for them alone. He didn't want another wife, not for himself, but maybe, just maybe, his girls needed a mother's love. He swallowed hard and looked at the line of women, some older, some young, all carrying the same look of quiet pain. He hesitated. How do you choose a woman like picking cattle from a pen? But before he could speak, a woman stepped slightly forward. Her name was Clara Hayes. She wasn't from around here. She had come with the last wagon train, escaping something she never talked about. She had been helping the church with the wounded after the raid, her hands trembling but her heart steady. When Luke's eyes met hers, something flickered, recognition perhaps, or the quiet pull of 2 broken souls. The sheriff noticed. "She's a good one," he said. "Strong heart, quiet. You could do worse." Luke nodded slightly but said nothing. His daughters pressed closer to him, their tiny hands gripping his coat. Clara's eyes met the little girl's, and for a moment she smiled, soft, sad but genuine. "I don't want to be chosen," Clara said finally, her voice steady but gentle. "I just want to help where I can," the crowd murmured. Luke's lips parted as if to speak, but before he could, the sheriff's voice thundered again. "Luke, you got till sundown to decide. After that, I'm sending the rest to Carson County. They'll find husbands there, whether they want them or not." The words burned in Luke's chest. He looked again at Clara, who now knelt beside one of the little girls, brushing a leaf from her tangled hair. Rose giggled. The sound was the first laugh Luke had heard from her in weeks. For a second, the rancher's heart softened. He thought maybe fate had brought her here, not by accident, but for a reason. As the sun sank behind the horizon, Luke exhaled. The crowd had thinned, leaving only the sheriff, Clara, and his daughters. Sheriff Reed turned to him. "Well, son, what's your choice?" Luke opened his mouth to speak, but before he could, the smallest of the twins, Annie, tugged his sleeve and pointed. "Papa," she said softly, her voice trembling but clear. "That's her." Luke blinked. "Who, sweetheart?" he asked quietly. Annie pointed again, straight at Clara Hayes. "That's her." "Papa," Rose added, her big blue eyes wide. "That's the one Mama talked about in our dreams." The sheriff's jaw dropped slightly, and Clara froze where she stood, her hand still on the little girl's shoulder. The wind fell silent. The world seemed to hold its breath. Luke looked at his daughters. Then at Clara. Something unexplainable passed between them. A whisper of destiny, something no man could reason with. The sheriff took off his hat slowly. "Well," he said in a low voice, "I guess the little ones made your choice for you." But even then, none of them knew that the sheriff's offer had just awakened a story that went far deeper than any of them could imagine. One of fate, love, and a promise that crossed even death itself. The night was cool and still when Luke led Clara and the twins back to the small ranch house on the edge of town. The moonlight bathed the land in silver and the wind whispered through the grass. Clara walked quietly beside them, unsure what to say. She hadn't agreed to be anyone's wife. She barely understood what had happened, but those little girls' eyes had pierced something in her heart she thought long dead. Inside the cabin, the air smelled of pine and wood smoke. A single candle flickered on the table. The twins climbed into their little beds, whispering and giggling softly. Clara helped cover them, her movements gentle, practiced, like someone who had known motherly love once long ago. Luke leaned against the doorframe, watching her in silence. "You don't have to stay," he said finally. "The sheriff, he shouldn't have said what he did. I don't take women like cattle." Clara smiled faintly but didn't look up. "And yet your daughters chose me," she said softly. "Children don't lie." He nodded slowly, his throat tight. "They've been through more than most grown folks. If they trust you, that's enough for me." Silence fell between them. But it wasn't empty. It was soft, full of something neither could name. Later that night, as the fire died down, Luke sat outside staring at the stars. Clara joined him quietly. "They said their mother talked about me," she said in a low voice. "But I never met her." Luke turned to her, his brow furrowed. "Before Mary died," he said, "she used to tell the girls stories about a woman who would come from far away, a woman with kind eyes who would help them smile again. I thought it was just something she said to comfort them." Clara's eyes shimmered. "Maybe she saw something you didn't." Luke looked away, his jaw tight. "You believe in things like fate?" She smiled faintly. "I didn't, until tonight." Days passed, then weeks. Clara stayed, not because anyone made her, but because she couldn't leave. She fixed the house, cooked meals, helped Luke with the ranch, and brought laughter back to the girls' faces. She found peace she hadn't known in years. Luke, too, began to change. He found himself watching her when she laughed, feeling something stir again, something gentle, unfamiliar, and real. But the world wasn't done testing them. One evening the sheriff rode up fast. "Trouble," he said grimly. "The Black Canyon gang's been seen near the ridge. They're coming for the ranches." Luke grabbed his rifle. "I won't let them near my family." Clara stood behind him, her hand trembling. "Be careful," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "I will." When the gunfire came, it tore through the night, echoing across the valley. Luke fought fiercely, protecting the only home he had left. When the dust cleared, the gang was gone. Luke lay on the porch, bleeding.